So we are live. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Marta Eggers. I work for Student Challenges, and I would like to warmly welcome you to this introduction to triple layer business model canvas workshop. I'm here with Lisa Ploum, Marieke Laméris, and Margot Hertz. Lisa and Marieke has prepared this workshop for you, and Margot will moderate our chat. So how it's going to work, we have a 2-hour session. In the first part, we will talk about entrepreneurial way of working, and Lisa is taking it on her. Then we'll have 10 minutes break, and Lisa and Marieke will together talk about business model canvas, and Marieke will provide some examples from her startup, Lekker Lupine. In the meantime, you are very welcome to ask any questions via the chat, and we'll have a couple of moments when we'll look at your questions and answer them. So don't be shy, make use of the opportunity to interact with us. And I think with that, I would like to give the floor to Lisa. And for the moment, the other 3 of us will hide our cameras and go on mute. So enjoy this workshop and see you at the end.
Thank you, Marta. Welcome, everybody. I see that the numbers are still rising, so that means that more and more people are dropping in. I think even now in these times, being fashionably late also holds for online events. So that's good to see that we keep some things from our normal life, I would say. The upside, of course, is that I can now talk to this very kind of big group of diverse people who entered the challenge. And I think all these online tools help us in kind of bringing us together, but also sharing our thoughts and ideas and bringing that to you. So that I would say is a very nice positive thing that came out of a kind of bad situation. So let's make the most of today. I'm very excited to be here, to be able to talk you through kind of the first steps of how you can become a little bit more entrepreneurial in your way of working, especially when you tackle these grand challenges of rethinking the protein transition and coming up with all kinds of innovative ideas. It might really help you to embrace a little bit more of an entrepreneurial way of working. So that will be, as Marta already said, the first part of this session this afternoon. And then we dive into the triple layered business model canvas, which is a tool, a canvas that helps you in kind of shaping all kinds of elements that you should think about when working with such innovative ideas that you guys are working on. So really see this as a very introductory session together with Marieke from Lekker Lupine. We give you all kinds of examples how they worked with the business model canvas, what kind of elements are important to them and how they worked with that. So I hope that gives you some kind of practical idea and some insights in how that can work in practice. Me, myself, I work for StartHub Wageningen, as you see here on the first slide. This is the student incubator of Wageningen University, where all kinds of students, but also PhDs and young professionals can come for help if they have an entrepreneurial idea. And my offer stands, and I will repeat it also at the end, together with our team, which you see on the left. We are more than open to help you guys throughout the challenge. You will be working on it for a couple of months. We are here for you, so to say. So if you have any questions related to entrepreneurship, but also with regards to maybe IP or prototyping or all kinds of other elements that are related to your challenge, you can always reach out to us. On the right-hand side, you see the student board. There were 5 of them, and they can also help you along the way. They have a lot of contacts, a network of experts. So it's there for you to make use of, I would say. It's an open offer. Me, myself, I'm the academic coordinator of entrepreneurship at Wageningen University, which basically means that throughout all the programs that we offer on entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial thinking, and the entrepreneurial mindset, I'm kind of involved. I design the programs, and I make sure that we can reach out to also people like you who are working on these challenges and might use these entrepreneurial tools that we can offer. So know where to find us. Feel free to reach out, and we're more than happy to help you along the way. So today, as mentioned, it's about our entrepreneurial wow, the way of working, like what can it bring for you? And if you truly embrace that, how does that maybe even bring your project further and help you also in the stages of this challenge? And then, of course, we dive into the topic, the main topic of today, which is the triple layered business model canvas. Feel free to drop the questions in the chat. I already see that some people are greeting everyone. That's really nice. So also if you have questions, just put it there. We also will make use of some polls in between. So I think they will show up in your screen. I'm almost sure of that. So that's another way of you, of your active participation, I would say, in this session as well. So if I talk about our entrepreneurial way of working, I basically talk about 4 core elements that we think are really helpful for you guys to embrace and to see, okay, where can we do what? And those 4 topics I want to go through quickly before the break. So you have a little bit of an idea, like, okay, what do we mean with value proposition, making an impact, working effectually, but also how to collaborate and communicate together in these kinds of big challenges that have all kinds of levels to it, all kinds of complexities to it, and then to add on to that, also working remotely and on a distance from each other. So we'll give you some tips on how expert entrepreneurs and successful entrepreneurs go about that. So that might be of inspiration to you. And of course, all these elements, they are also woven into your deliverables for the first round in the challenge. So also at the end, I will kind of pinpoint a little bit like, okay, what are the things that you can take out of today that translate directly to your deliverable reports? And I think that makes it worthwhile to be here and that you are here and to make the most of this session, I would say. So for this program, for where we are in, it's really in this ideation stage. Most of you have an idea. Also, there might already be some proof for that idea, but you're in the very early stages of coming up with maybe a new product in the Rethink Protein Challenge. Maybe it's a new technology that you're thinking about. Could also be kind of a platform or a service, but it's probably still rather vague what you are going to work on, and you're in the very first stage. So you have been like sparked, you have this idea, and you're now exploring in a stage like, okay, is there something to it? Might there be a market for it? What is our minimal viable product, MVP, that we can make out of it? And can we then also validate this? Right? So in this orange square, you will make all kinds of iterations and steps in the process. And doing that entrepreneurially helps you in getting there faster, basically. And that's what I want to put out there, that you can actually implement such things and really become better at making these quick loops of feedback and iteration. A little bit of background on what you can think about or think of when we talk about the entrepreneurial process, right? How does it maybe even differ from a managerial process or a research-oriented process? And all kinds of elements are linked to that. But these short feedback loops, they are really at the core of entrepreneurial learning, I would say. And there are kind of three main elements to it. It's people, it's technology, and it's money. And I think that all holds for your ideas and your projects as well, right? So if you think about people involved, it's not just the team. You all signed up with a team, so you're not alone, or maybe still at this stage you're by yourself, but you're looking for people. So that's the human and the social capital that you have. So like, who do you know? What do you know? What can you bring to this project? But it's also the people involved in terms of for whom are you developing this project? For whom are you making this technology? Who is that user, or who is maybe your customer, but also who can be involved as a stakeholder in your project. All these things make it make the body around your idea, right? It's not just that it's a workable idea and that it's technically feasible. There are a lot of things that need to fall in place for it to become something that is actually implemented in real life. Another aspect is the technology. And most of you, I think, will be quite familiar with this technology. You've already done some research, but you can also do some prototyping, finding a minimal viable form of your idea and testing that instead of implementing maybe 2 years, a year of research, then go to the market and find out it does not really work, right? So this is again these short iterative loops. And throughout the challenge, you'll have plenty of time to work with that. And of course, if we talk about entrepreneurship and about viability, we also talk about money. And it's not just about revenues, profit, it's also about what kind of funding sources can you find? How do you expect to kickstart your project? And that's much broader than just saying the production of our idea or product costs this amount of money. We expect to get this in return. So it's much broader, and also in the challenge you'll have plenty of time to get acquainted with that. So when we talk about our entrepreneurial way of working, we always talk about making an impact. And I think this is something that is not a strange thing to you, or this picture is not a strange kind of topic. And I think also now in the chat there is there is a question that says like, okay, to what SDG is your idea related to? It would be great if you could respond to that. So think about this idea that you have, dive into the Sustainable Development Goals and find out, okay, what goal is related to that idea of ours? And if you dive into that goal, you can also find networks behind it or information and find possible funding strategies that are related to that. So keep an eye out for these developments on a more higher abstract level, but that really help you in kind of setting a pathway. And also later on, when we go through the triple layer business model canvas with Marieke, I think she will also relate to these sustainable development goals to some extent and say, okay, how does Lekker Lupine does this? Moving on to our third aspect of the entrepreneurial way of working is working effectual. And effectuation is a little bit of a theoretical approach to entrepreneurship and to entrepreneurial learning, but it's something that really can help you in setting the first steps, right? So it's about thinking about who you are, what kind of means do you have? So who do you know? What do you know? Who's in your network? What's your background? What can you bring to the table? And from there, think about that idea that you have. So think about, okay, in our team, we have somebody with a little bit more of a technology background, maybe somebody with a little bit of a marketing background. What can we achieve with this? Who do we know in our network? Who can we talk to? And maybe learn early on that this idea that we have right now needs a little bit of tweaking or needs a little bit of rethinking. And that helps you in the end, designing and researching and developing something that is much more within your reach, instead of only focusing on a very long term and, for instance, needing a lot of money for R&D for that. Right, so it's really about starting from where you stand right now and looking at what you can actually do. So where to start, right? And this is what I already mentioned. So what can you do now to get to the next step sooner? And entrepreneurship is basically this, but then all the time. So what can you do now to get to a next step? And if you repeat this process, you get into this learning cycle of developing prototypes, developing early versions of your final product, and really learning from the people that are using it or from the stakeholders around it. Maybe I think there's somebody with the microphone not muted. So maybe you can check that, because I hear some background noise, but I think now it's solved. Great. And for you guys right now, it's the step to take is to think within your groups, like, okay, what is our bird in hand? Like, what do we have in our reach to get to a next step further? And you can ask yourself questions like, okay, who am I? What do I know? Who do I know? And who do we know in our team? But also, what are we willing to lose in terms of time, money, resources? So what are we willing to put in this project? And what do we want to get out of it in the end? And this is it seems so extremely logical to do it, to say, okay, let's make an inventory of this. But it doesn't really happen that often. And a lot of the times you get already sunk into, oh, we have this idea. This is what we want to make, to research, to develop. And then you get stuck, because then maybe you cannot reach that because you need, for instance, a laboratory to do some research and you don't have access to it. So if you reverse the question and really start from, okay, what can we already do right now? That helps you in really making progress on the short term. And I would really advise you to do that. It's also about controlling the things that you have control of, right? Don't get too stuck in only analyzing and researching and doing desk research and finding articles and papers, and maybe only thinking about, but what if this happens? What if that happens? Get into an action vibe, action modus. So just start and get going and see where it leads you, and learn from it in the meantime. That brings me to kind of our fourth principle of the entrepreneurial way of working. And this has to do with collaborating and communicating within your team, but also outside, right? So it's communication inwards and outwards. The first step could be like get to know each other's bird in hand. Maybe you started this challenge with a couple of friends and you were just like, oh, let's go do this. We have some ideas about rethinking protein and we want to go for this. But still, it's worthwhile to really check, like, okay, who's in my network? What do I know? What's my strength? What do we don't know? And what we need to bring in? But also make some kind of team agreements. You signed up for this challenge, and for some, it's something that is just nice to do. For others, it's really like, okay, we want to really push this forward and really want to get something out of it. We really want to win. Maybe that's your starting point. But it's good to talk about this within your team. So it's about openness and an action orientation. So if you get into the doing and doing then the most that you can do mode, you grow into this project. You find out that maybe there are projects that are kind of alike out there, and maybe you join forces. Maybe you find out very early on that the technology is not ready yet, or that it's maybe something for the future, but that you can take a couple of steps back and still make progress, right? So these are all kinds of things that might really help you in the teamwork behind it. There's also a planning tool, and I think most of you have already once heard of it, but maybe it's new to you. So the Kanban planning methodology is a methodology that is really, really closely related to iteratively working. So on very short feedback loops. And if you listen to my story, you also hear that entrepreneurial thinking, entrepreneurial way of working is about this iterative way of working, about creating short learning cycles, feeding it back in, and really make some decisions in a very, very short period of time. So this Kanban methodology is something that can really help you out in structuring the work and finding ways to collaborate with each other and not do the same thing within the team. So if you're interested in it, there are very good resources online. I can also share some later on with Marta, and she can share it with you. But if you Google it, Kanban method, you will see that it has to do with weekly stand-ups. So at the beginning of the week, you say, okay, who's going to do what this week? And you move it along a board to see also the progress. So that's just a tip. You don't have to do it, but it can structure your work very nicely, and it can help you in the challenge as well. So this was maybe a lot of information, and it might also be that it already went very quickly, but the real work starts right now. And you started, if I remember correctly, last week officially, so it's very early on. But you can do already a lot. So do you actually know what the problem is that you want to solve? Or do you just have an idea? And in almost 70% of the failure of startups or of innovative projects, basically, is thinking that you're solving a problem that you're actually not solving, or that's not actually a problem, right? So diving into what problem are we solving, or are we trying to solve, is the first step that you can take, and that you also need to include in your deliverables. So really make sure you spend a little bit of time on diving into what the problem is and whether you can find some backup for this. Maybe there is some research already done and you can back it up. So don't worry if you don't have a clue yet. You might have this idea, but you don't necessarily know what the problem is you want to solve. You have plenty of time to dive into that. Related to this, it's thinking about, like, okay, what's our vision? What's the solution to the problem, and do they fit with each other? And these are also elements that need to be in your deliverable report. So a tool that can help you with kind of pinpointing, like this problem, vision, solution part, is the golden circle. It's a tool that's used a lot of the times in entrepreneurship. So for those of you who already did some entrepreneurial workshops, they are already familiar with this probably. But for those of you who are not, and I suspect that the people who are in are maybe not aware, because this is the introduction to it. This is a tool. You can also, again, Google it. Simon Sinek, who is kind of an inspirational leader in entrepreneurial thinking, has come up with this. It's actually related to how our brain functions. And he basically says that if you start from the why, so the problem, but also your vision, and then relate to, okay, then what is it that we do, and what is it that we want to sell or want to make, you reason from an intuitive perspective instead of from outward in, where it becomes really complicated. So for you guys, in kind of determining what's our vision, what's the problem, but also what's our solution to that problem, this is a very easy tool to use. And I say easy because it only has 3 layers. But it's actually quite hard to understand the why. So it helps you to ask a question like 5 times the why question. So you give an answer to it and then you still say, but why is this? So really dig deep. So see this as an assignment that you can take up yourselves and go through to get that problem, solution, fit, and your vision very clear. It's also something that people who read your reports, who are in the selection committee, in the challenges support team. If you have this very clear, people immediately understand what you are doing. And I already see that Marieke has shared also the TED Talk, which is great. Thanks for that. So you can just click on that later on and see it as well, or maybe even in the break. So remember that one. Talking about a break, I've been now talking for half an hour. The session will take about until 4, maybe a little bit before. So I suggest we have a short break right now, because after the break we dive into the triple layered business model canvas together with Marieke to give some answers to how they are doing that with Lekker Lupine. Are there any questions, Marta, at this moment?
There were some practical questions related to the challenge so far.
Okay.
But I think otherwise it's clear. Guys, if you have questions related to that part, feel free to put it in the chat during the break. Lisa, we take 10-minute break now?
Yeah, I think that's a good one, so people can get some refreshments, maybe go out for some fresh air for 10 minutes, and then we continue with the session.
So at 2:38, so in 10 minutes, we see you online. And I think for the moment, we will switch off our cameras, put ourselves on mute. See you in 10 minutes. And remember to put any questions in the chat, and we can answer them at the beginning of the next session.
Yeah, that would
See you soon.
Bye. All right, that was already a 10-minute break. I hope everybody is getting back into the session as well. Had a nice break, had some coffee, maybe some fresh air. So the second part of this afternoon, at least afternoon for me, I can imagine that maybe for some of you it's morning or evening. I'm not quite sure where everybody's coming from, but that makes it good fun. Let's continue with the second part of today, which will be really about this canvas, this triple layer business model canvas. And we'll infuse that with examples from Lekker Lupine with Marieke. So she will also step in later on. So if you have questions, once more, don't be afraid. Feel free to put them in the chat. We're more than happy then to respond to it, or either in the chat or live, I would say, in the session. So we do have another poll for you. So we're going to talk about the triple layer business model canvas. But I'm really curious to hear who's already familiar with the business model canvas or with the triple layer business model canvas. So if you could respond to that. And I already see that I'm not sure how many responses there have been, but it's full on 100% never. All right. Some of you say, I did work with the business model canvas, which is already super helpful. And I see that it is that people are now responding to it, which is super nice. Thanks for that. It gives me at least a little bit of an idea where you guys are at. And it's always good to keep working with the tools and learning more and more, even though you've maybe used it before, but still there's a lot of room to improve and to learn from it. So the triple layer business model canvas is a tool that builds on the business model canvas. And the business model canvas is basically a structure of 9 building blocks that helps you in design, improve, innovate, create a business case around an idea that you have. And it has very concrete steps to it. So it's very helpful in mapping out what you think is the business model behind your idea. But it's also a great tool to actually find out what you don't know yet, or what you should validate, or that you should find out or establish in your around your idea. And the triple layered business model canvas adds 2 layers to it. And I think in most of your cases that makes a lot of sense, because you're working on these sustainable, innovative projects in this Rethink Protein challenge. So it adds to it with an environmental layer, and it's really about a life cycle perspective. So really thinking a couple of steps further in terms of what kind of effects does it have? How do users get rid of your product? Or what does it mean in terms of resources used? Can you improve on that? But also a social layer, which is really based on a stakeholder societal perspective, to think about, okay, maybe we exclude people with this idea. How can we shape our kind of business idea in such a way that more people are involved? So we'll go through especially the first layer, the traditional business model canvas, because also for in your stage, also with seeing that that most of you have not worked with it before. It's good to really understand that layer, and we'll tap into the 2 layers, especially on the impact level. And we'll do that together, as I said, with Marieke. So she will provide you examples of how they did this and how they tackled certain elements of the business model canvas as such. Before we dive into the building blocks and the examples, I would like you to show a video, and the video will be started for you in a minute. So it's a short introduction of the business model canvas and what it does.
An organization's business model can be described with 9 basic building blocks: your customer segments, your value proposition for each segment, the channels to reach customers, customer relationships you establish, the revenue streams you generate, the key resources and key activities you require to create value, the key partners, and the cost structure of the business model. But it's not sufficient to just enumerate the 9 building blocks. What you really want to do is to map them out on a pre-structured canvas. This is what we call the business model canvas, a tool that helps you map, discuss, design, and invent new business models. Let's briefly go through the 9 building blocks, starting with the customer segments. These are all the people or organizations for which you're creating value. This includes simple users and paying customers. For each segment, you have a specific value proposition. These are the bundles of products and services that create value for your customers. The channels describe through which touchpoints you're interacting with customers and delivering value. The customer relationships outline the type of relationship you're establishing with your customers. The revenue streams make clear how and through which pricing mechanisms your business model is capturing value. Then you need to describe the infrastructure to create, deliver, and capture value. The key resources show which assets are indispensable in your business model. The key activities show which things you really need to be able to perform well. The key partners show who can help you leverage your business model, since you won't own all key resources yourself, nor will you perform all key activities. Then once you understand your business model's infrastructure, you'll also have an idea of its cost structure. So with the business model canvas, you can map out your entire business model in one image. This works for startup entrepreneurs just as well as for the most senior executives.
All right, that was a very short and concise introduction to the business model canvas, and we'll go through it step by step in the remaining, let's say, part of this afternoon. So you'll have a bit of a feeling on, okay, we have these 9 building blocks, we have these different layers, like an environmental and social layer as well. What can we use of it? Can we already maybe fill something out for our project? And learn from a real life example together with Marieke. So as a general kind of overview, if you look at this business model canvas of this map, so to say, you have a right-hand side and the left-hand side of the model. You also have kind of the bottom 2 building blocks, which we call the bottom line. It has to do with your cost structure and your revenue streams. That's something, and that's also what I will show you in a later slide. It's not a place where you will start at the bottom. So especially this left-hand side and this right-hand side will be something that is of importance to you. So the right-hand side really has to do with serving a certain customer, a user with your product or service or your technology, right? Depending on what you guys are working on in your groups, you can have customers that are other businesses. You have a business-to-business proposition. Or you can have a business-to-consumer relation if you're working on, for instance, a lupine product or another protein product that is really meant to serve a certain customer directly. So that's the right-hand side of the model. It all has to do with this customer. And it needs to be very clear who you are serving with and for whom you're creating value. The left-hand side of the model really has to do with the internal processes, with producing the offer. What do we need to put in place? What resources do we need? What activities do we do to actually make and create that offer, right? So there are different elements to the business model canvas as such, and we can group some building blocks together. As I said, you will never start at the bottom line. So start with the user-driven design. So very early on in the development of your challenge, of your case, of your technology, of your product, think about who's going to use that specific proposition idea that you guys are working on. If you know for whom you are designing your product, your service, your technology, your platform, you can also design your product according to their wishes. And that really helps you in developing something that people want and that actually will be implemented in the market at the end. So that's user-driven design. And also in the follow-up workshop, we'll dive a lot more into these intricacies on how to do that. But this is something that should be at the core of what you are doing. The left-hand side of the model, again, has to do with this effectual decision-making. So what do we already have in-house? What can we already do? What activities? What kind of resources? But also think about, okay, with whom should we collaborate? And we'll go through all these 9 steps together and together with you, but also together with Marieke. So Marieke, if you could step in and also turn on your camera, then I think it is the time for us to be introduced to Lekker Lupine and to you. So I would like you to take over and introduce the case for us.
Okay, thank you for inviting me here. I hope to, and thank you for all being here with us this afternoon. I'm looking forward to have this presentation. I hope to answer some questions of you as well. So please put your questions in the chat. First, I'm Marieke Laméris. I'm a marketeer. My background is marketing and experienced. I have a huge network in food. And I will tell you something about Lekker Lupine, or in English, Lovely Lupine. It's just a new business. We've started half a year ago. And half a year ago, I participated in a challenge like this, but then from Rabobank, the Netherlands. And I was wondering, do you know lupins? So I don't know if it's in the poll right now. Oh yeah, you can see it's a flower, it's a bean, it's both. Yes, all body. Everybody knows it's both. When I started this Rabobank Food Forward Challenge, I only knew lupin as a flower. And there I met the farmer, André Jurrius. He's from Eco Boerderij, so organic farmer here in the neighborhood. And he told us about lupin. He was growing lupin for more than 10 years as a front runner here in the Netherlands. And he told us about all these benefits lupins are providing for. It's healthy food, for example. It's good for climate change. It's for soil. It's really perspective food. And then I thought, well, we don't know it in the Netherlands. Why? If you want to work with the protein transition, if you want to contribute it, if you want to contribute to more local sourced organic food in the Netherlands, I think it is really a nice case, and I want to help you, André. So we started Lekker Lupine, or Lovely Lupine, and we wanted to boost the growth and demand of lupins, organic lupins in the Netherlands, because he told me, well, Marieke, I can grow more lupins, but nobody knows it in the Netherlands. So I will not grow these lupins when there's no demand. So we thought, well, it is necessary. We have to grow, boost the growth and demand of lupins. And we were a diverse team, just like you. And he is a farmer, has a background in organic farming and a large network. I'm in food and marketing, hospitality. And so we thought, and this is what the Rabobank also rewarded us, and we won this first prize, because they said, well, you are a diverse team, bringing farmers and consumers together. So it's a good idea that you work with Lupine. So increase demand. I will tell you later about how we are going to do this. And right from the start, I thought, well, it is also necessary that we start to building a community with consumers, but also with the whole food chain. Because before I was a city marketeer, I really believe we have to engage everybody and to listen and to learn from each other. And but we have a short movie. Marta, can you start this movie, please?
We staan hier op een veld waar we lupine geteeld hebben. Ecoboerderij de Lingenhof die teelt nu al sinds 10 jaar witte lupine. Het is een relatief eenvoudige teelt. We kunnen dat met de mechanisatie, de bestaande mechanisatie op ons bedrijf, wat we ook gebruiken in de graanteelt, prima mee uit de voeten. Het is op een biologisch dynamische wijze geteeld. En het heeft heel veel toekomstperspectief. Het heeft heel veel potentie om uit te groeien tot een volwaardig eiwitrijk gewas wat we gaan gebruiken voor de consument. Echter, de teelt moet nog verder geoptimaliseerd worden en ook de vraag moet nog groeien. Daarom is Lekker Lupine in het leven geroepen om vraag en aanbod dichter bij elkaar te krijgen. En daarmee kunnen we met z'n allen veel meer hectares lupine telen en kunnen we gebruik maken met z'n allen van de voordelen van lupine.
En we zien ook, er is een enorme vraag naar plantaardige eiwitten. Want hoe mooi zou het nou zijn als we hier die lupine kunnen telen in plaats van dat we soja van de andere kant van de wereld halen. Daarnaast is het een hartstikke mooi gewas. En je kan er van alles mee maken. Dat is nog het leuke van ontbijt, lunch, diner, zoet, hartig. Er zijn ontzettend veel toepassingsmogelijkheden. Alleen nu is het zo, in Nederland kent nog niemand lupine. En weet nog niet, wat kan ik ermee doen? En we zijn nu bezig met restaurants. Zij zetten op ons verzoek lupine op de menukaart. Allemaal op eigen wijze. En dat is het leuke, want hiermee maken niet alleen de chefs kennis met lupine, maar ook de consument.
That was a nice introduction, I would say, of the case. Marieke, do you want to add to the introduction, or can we continue?
For this is okay. And maybe I want to add something because we won this case. East Netherlands, for example, this is the lobby company from the government here in the eastern part of the Netherlands. They were looking for these nice cases for protein transition. So they asked us, can we make a video for us? And we said, of course, because we are startup, we don't have any money. So we are very happy that we have it with subtitles in English and we can use it now and show it to you. So that's
great.
Why.
Yeah, it looks really fancy, I would say, the video. Really nicely done.
Okay, then I can turn my camera off.
Yeah, that's all right. So we'll continue with going through the steps of the business model canvas, of the triple layer business model canvas. And for a lot of these parts, I will ask Marieke to provide us with an example of how Lovely Lupine has implemented these parts. They are also in the very early stages of building up their community, but also about boosting the demand for lupine, and as we saw in the introduction video as well, to create more of locally grown, I would say, lupine, but that will come later as well. So we'll go through the steps of the business model canvas. And alongside, you can also already start thinking about, okay, how does that work for our project? And maybe already write some things down, like, okay, this is how it could work for us. So at the core, the very core of the business model canvas is the value proposition. So what specific value do you offer with your idea, with your product, with your technology? So it's not just a list of all kinds of features, but it's really about how you kind of solve a certain pain or solve a certain problem or create a certain joy for somebody. So really think about, like, okay, what's at the heart of our product or service or technology? And there has been initiated a poll again. So the poll or the question is like, does your team already have a value proposition for your project? And I see now that the no option is most popular, and that's also not a big surprise to me. So don't worry if you don't have it. But this value proposition, some now are saying yes, so that's also good. All right. So most of you actually have a value proposition. Maybe that's part of also thinking about the solution. So usually the value proposition entails most of what your actual solution or your proposition is. So it's getting to 60-40%. So most of you have already thought about this value proposition. Others might need to maybe formulate it. I think that it is somewhere in your brains or maybe already in the application form, but it might need some specific attention in the wording of, okay, what value do we offer? And I would like to ask Marieke to kind of pinpoint what specifically the value proposition for Lovely Lupine is. And yeah, I think you can explain it very nicely. Marieke, you're on mute, I think.
Oh, yeah. Now
yes,
I'm
great.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm muted. Thank you. Well, still for us it was difficult because you start easy, as Lisa said, like with many features. What are the features? And then we are also thinking, well, who is our target group? And we have some consumers, but also we think if we want to have our mission is Lupine on everyone's plate, we need also food industry. So business to business is also important target group. And then we found out, well, for every target group, there maybe we should design a different value proposition. But the key is like we wanted to have a new source of super proteins grown by Dutch organic farmers on everyone's plate. And then here you find in my template, you find some features, but I'm trying to explain how we formulate it. And it's like, well, you have to think about, okay, what's the job to be done? You can find also movies about this. Which problem are you solving, or which, and it's still continuing. It's in progress because we talk all the time to our customers or our consumers, and then we thought, well, okay, maybe we have to tackle this is more important or this is less important. But for now, we think, well, for consumers, while eating lupine, you have a great source of healthy food on your plate with a high level of proteins and essential amino acids, which give you a perfect balanced plant-based diet. So the plant-based diet for people who want to eat more plant-based or vegetarian, it's perfect. It's also, while eating lupine, you contribute to avoiding this climate change. So reducing CO2, carbon emissions, by eating locally grown and by eating no meat, but plants. It's also, when growing lupine, it fixes nitrogen. So there's no fertilization needed. And it's 100% organic. So you eat climate, it is completely a clean label. There's no GMO. And by eating these lupines, you also helps to increase this biodiversity. A lot of insects love the flowers. And by eating lupine from the local food chain, you contribute to a fair and transparent food chain organized by Lekker Lupine. And what I also said, because I was a city marketeer before, and I think it's important as well, you eat your landscape. So with its nice flowers in summer, it is so nice. You can love these flowers. So it's a beautiful landscape as well. So we found out for every target group, even for consumers, we have to define or formulate a different value proposition, maybe, because we did some research and then we found out, for example, for consumers, well, the vegetarians, they are interested in other things to hear than the meat eaters. But okay, for this is for now.
Thanks, and I really like the fact that you mentioned, we kind of already found out maybe that one value proposition for all customer segments does not work. And I think you're spot on, because what we normally say is that the more kind of customers or users you serve, or maybe even partners, you have to develop different value propositions, right? Yeah. Because not everything fits with everything. Yeah. And I think that's really nice to already see that you've also in this image, like you've divided the value propositions and put emphasis on either the climate or the biodiversity aspects, or either the taste and other aspects of your product. And it's really good to see these things coming back in your example as well.
But this is also because we talk a lot with many people, and they give us back. And some people are more active, like like activism, or like, well, I want to fight this climate, and others think, well, this is not work. I like to contribute to this biodiversity, and you should emphasize this. So.
Yeah, and another thing that I hear from your example is that it's not a one-time exercise, huh? So it's not like, we decided this is our value proposition and that's it. It's something that is evolving over time. So even for the groups now, that if they have an idea about their value proposition, I think I would dare to put money on it to say in a couple of weeks, months, you will have a different value proposition.
Yeah. But this is like the difficult part, because at one time you have to start and just focus. And for me, it's like, I see everywhere chances. Like, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. But we are only together with two people. So we have to make choices and look. What you said also, what kind of tools and energy and network do we already have? And it's easy for us to start with. So, for example, we can talk later about it. Maybe.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, I will move to diving into that right-hand side of the model. So I think Marieke already mentioned it a little bit. Like, you have to sell or tell your value proposition to specific customers. And that can be other businesses, that can also be consumers or users of your product. But it's really important that you think about very specific customer segments. And you will have to integrate this in your deliverable for the challenge as well. Like, who are you thinking of if you think about, okay, who's going to use our product or our new technology? And can you be very specific about who the target group is? Marieke already said something about, we found out that there are differences between meat eaters and vegetarians. But still, meat eaters and vegetarians is still a very broad group. So maybe you can be even more specific about who these people are, right? So the more specific you are, the better you can design your first product or your first technology accordingly to that customer segment. And as mentioned before, it's better to have multiple specific segments than one single very generic one. And then you adapt also your value proposition accordingly. So it can be that you have one or two or maybe three business model canvases around the same idea, but tailored towards different segments or different customers. So think about these things when designing your idea. So you have your value proposition, you have your customer segments, but you of course also want to reach your customers. And the channels describe the way you kind of reach your targeted audience, your customers, other businesses. So you can think about, okay, maybe we have to indeed sell our product through restaurants or through stores or in a website or with a platform. Or maybe it is that we team up with a bigger store or a wholesaler and sell it through that channel. So it's everything from how customers or users hear about your products, how they get your products, and where they can kind of buy it, basically. So that's the channels that you should describe and that you should think about. Your customer relationships, emphasis on how you interact with your customers. Do you maybe have a customer support system? Do you have maybe a chat or a platform where people can reach out to you? So how do you stop them from forgetting about you for the next time? So is there maybe a community built around it? And maybe it has to do with social media in the way you kind of create a wave of activism. So it's about how to keep your customers related and connected to you. And I think it's good to pause here and to ask again how lovely Lupine and how Marieke is trying to establish these types of customer relationships, but also in how to kind of segment these customers and how that looks like for lovely Lupine.
Well, okay. So as I said, we have these consumers, which are extremely important, because if nobody knows, nobody wants lupine, nobody's gonna eat this lupine. But also the food industry, because now you see these lupines are only sold in these glass jars and in supermarkets, so which is good. But the people in the Netherlands, they don't know it, or they hardly buy it. It's sold in Europe, but not in the Netherlands. So I will tell you something about how we approach our consumer groups, where we start and how it can even be better, and about the food industry. So in the left side, you see Anke. She's a consumer. She didn't know anything about lovely lupines or about lupines. And we also got another movie from Rabobank. We thought, well, we have to tell this story and ask consumers and chefs and scientists about why is lupine so interesting. So here in the middle of the flowering fields with lupines, we ask Anke. And I think it's very important to engage the consumers right from the start, as I said. And I really invest in them to understand them. Why are they thinking about eating lupines? For example, during Christmas party at my family, with friends, with the community, I ask the students from Wageningen University. They did some research, and everybody now, not everybody in the Netherlands, but almost, they are talking about these lupines. And so I think that is nice to do, to have offline and online activities. I really like to invest in offline because then I get this right feeling. So we did some activities for these groups to get them know. So I just started with a cooking challenge. Who wants to cook with lupines? I provided them the dry beans, and we started a WhatsApp group, and they all shared their knowledge about, well, I'm making these burgers and how I do not know how to boil them or whatever. So it was fun. And we also organized a field excursion. So we invited chefs, students, consumers on the lupine field and told them about this lupine. And there was a lot of knowledge exchange as well. And then I thought, well, the local government of Wageningen, they asked us, well, can you can you organize a restaurant week where the lupin is on the menu? So we organized this last October, and we got all this knowledge from these chefs who didn't know lupin before, but said, well, I want to work with it, or it's difficult, or it's fun, or it's so whatever. But on the other hand, I thought, well, this is small. Yeah, I start small with offline, but then all the time making these press releases and the platform online, Lekker Lupine, our website. And I thought, well, we have to build a community online so I can refer all the time, that people who have questions can look at our website and find the same answers and nice material. So it's an online growing community, and it helps us to tell our story. It's only in Dutch, I'm sorry, but we think, well, the Netherlands is our first target group, so we decided to do it in Dutch, although there are many English students and people who live in the Netherlands or do not speak Dutch. So I want to, if somebody wants to translate it for me, well, you're welcome. But so online and offline is important. Then I'm going to tell you about the food industry. The food industry, it's a different approach, because now our lupin beans are sold by this Magandel. They buy all our beans and sell it in the organic stores or at organic supermarkets. And we think, well, in order to have more lupin on everyone's plate, there should be more products with lupin available. So now we are trying to find out which companies, which chefs, which wants to work with lupin and find added value of lupin to work with. Because if you're looking for an alternative source of protein, you can look for peas, you can look for many others. So you have to find organizations who think, well, this is gonna help us to solve our problem. So in the meantime, we have some contacts, and that is very personal. It's not, sometimes at LinkedIn, I post messages and I tell my story. Well, if you want to work with lupin as a food producer, please contact me, because then we're going to find out what kind of products we can make. And we have to find out ourselves as well if we're going to make these products on the name of Lovely Lupin, so it's our own brand, or it's a co-brand. That's another question. And in the meantime, there are chefs and they're making recipes for us now. They want to they want to promote they are working with plant-based menus and food. And I said, well, if you want to, I give you some lupins and you can make nice recipes. People can make them at home, and I will share it on my website. So on February 10, it's going to be World Pulses Day. And then I share some recipes from chefs from all over the Netherlands. So for now.
Okay, thanks. It's really clear that you have a very strong relationship, I think, with your consumer side, and that you really try to engage them as well in this transition, right? And it also has to do because lupin is not like a very well-known product yet, and I think that holds for quite a lot of the ideas maybe, and then it's really important to engage these users of your product in the beginning. So thanks for sharing these examples with us.
Maybe it's nice that the fun part is that here in Wageningen there are people from all over the world. And yes, they told me from Egypt, said, well, it is very famous snack here in Egypt, or in Ecuador, we have this salad. So, or in Asia. So it is very nice that I can learn from them and how they eat the lupin, and I can, involve it in my proposition.
Yeah. So there's also a question from Julia. So I think I can answer that. Like, what's the recommendation if you want to address customers in a business model canvas for an activity mainly focused on a business to business? So this means that in your value proposition, you have mostly another business that is your customer. That's often a little bit more complicated to really build that right-hand side around that, because it's not as easy as just reaching out to consumers, but it's of course not impossible, because there are many business ideas out there that are into this business to business proposition, and I think yours is a little bit in between. But Julia, what I would recommend is that in terms of channels and customer relations, you have at least access to you as a company, as somebody who's offering a certain technology, so that you have a good customer service point, for instance. That's what you see happening a lot of the times when there is a business to business proposition. You have a one-on-one relationship with that potential consumer. So it's more tailored towards that other business, and it's really about relationship building. Because you need to probably listen to what these other businesses want from you, how you can establish contacts and contracts. So those are steps that you can take in terms of setting up a more of a business-to-business business model canvas. There are also plenty of examples out there. So do a little bit of a search on these kinds of propositions, and then you can see how that is structured. And I'm also more than happy to provide you with some feedback if you have already something ready. So talking about the left-hand side of the business model canvas, we really talk about how you're going to produce your offer. How are you going to put things in place so you can actually create a platform or create a product or a technology. So what is the activity so strategically core to your business that you would never outsource it? So what really is key to your business? That can be the manufacturing, because you have access to factories. It can be your R&D, so your research is really key to your business. It can also be because you have a very strong marketing strategy or production facility. So those are the things that you can take into account when thinking about, okay, what activities do we ourselves do to get things going? And that relates to what resources do you have that are key, that competitors would have to replicate in order to compete. So what are those unique resources that you can put in the mix? That can be your technology, because you maybe have patents on it or a licensing model. It can also be because you have a very strong brand. And I think also in the development of Lovely Lupine and Lekker Lupine, this brand feeling or this community feeling can be something that becomes a very core resource, because everybody in the Netherlands knows of it, for instance. It can also be your production plans, the materials that you have, but also don't forget that it can be your human resources. Maybe you have people in the team that are so key to the development of your project, of your idea, that you would even name them as a key resource in your proposition. So I want to go back quickly to Marieke to give a short kind of insight in how Lovely Lupine is trying to build their business, and how they go about actually making the offer. So Marieke, if you could explain what you guys do exactly, that would be great.
What are we doing here? In the left picture, you see André. He is the farmer, and he grows the lupine, organic lupine. And he is for many years, and he's a front runner in the Netherlands. So he has a lot of knowledge of growing this lupine, and this is key. So this is extremely important. But as a So we, if we want to grow this, boost this grow, he cannot grow this lupin all by himself. So he needs a network. We need a network with more organic farmers. So he has many friends in his network who asked them last year for the first time and now this year for the second time, do you want to grow lupin as well? And then we serve this Lekker Lupine as a brand. But it's very important, he says, I have a high standard. He's a biodynamic farmer, but you have to be certified and organic. And so grow these lupins, and then we can use these lupins. And he shares his knowledge about growing this lupin. On which soil is it possible? When do you need to harvest them? How to tackle diseases or whatever. So we also provide the seeds from lupin. And boost the demand, of course. So we thought, well, it is necessary to improve more, or to have more knowledge about growing this lupin, because for many years there was no knowledge in the Netherlands. All the knowledge went to improving this potato and corn fields, but we need more knowledge about growing organic lupins, because now it has to be optimized, the business. At the moment, it is not really profitable to grow lupin as a farmer. You only grow it when you think, well, this is profitable. It will become profitable. And about boosting the demand, we are building this community, and this community is everybody is engaged: the farmer, the seed supplier, the students, and the consumers, of course. And we think, well, this offline platform here, you see the chef Barend Kramer. He was a fan from the early stage, and he said, well, I want to work with lupin. I'm now for 40 years a chef, but I've never worked with it. So he made these smoothies, bread, cookies, everything he wants to try. And I invited him during the field excursion, well, to offer a taste. And there you see the chefs and the students, and everybody wants to taste it. So I think this community is also key, because now when we are growing this, we want to boost this demand and looking for new companies who want to work with lupin, or how do you say, make new products of lupin. They are interested. Well, they have some questions like, I need a food technologist. How is lupin going to work? Or I want to test it on a group of consumers. Or, well, is somebody going to make a nice recipe with it? So, and within our network, we are only here for 6 months. We have a growing network, and many people want to contribute to this. And this is this is really the fun part, and I really like about this Lekker Lupine, because it's like, well, this is what I most happy to do, to connect all these people with this many disciplines, backgrounds from for example, a food designer, chef, and everybody can add some value. But we have to make some choices. Okay, who is gonna serve first? But already can make many connections. So this is so the growing this lupine and working on this community. And I hope in the upcoming years to have our lupin brands food on the shelves as well.
Thanks. Sounds good. I would say I hope it grows indeed in the future. Maybe you could also stick with us. I think you already mentioned it a little bit, because you cannot do everything yourself, right? So you have to also have some partners involved, because you basically are not able to do all activities and everything you want to do yourself. So maybe you can shortly explain, and I think you've mentioned all kinds of partners already throughout the story, but to pinpoint like, okay, how do you collaborate with partners, but maybe also how that can be a challenge, for instance, like what do you need to think about if you want to team up or partner up with other organizations?
Yeah, I think it is extremely important to have your goal. Where are we working on, and who can contribute to it? Because I'm so always happy to serve everybody, but I have to focus on, okay, who is going to help us to get this work? Huh? So more Lupine, more boost of Lupine. And so we have here in the left, you see, I had some different kind of pictures because we work with many partners, and it's left in my house before the corona. We invited just some farmers, a food scientist, everybody from the whole food chain, because we think it is key to know the whole food chain and to understand and be curious to understand what are your needs, what are the bottlenecks, and to talk with it and be transparent. The other part is, you see here this report on the Nationale Eiwitstrategie. That's the Dutch strategy for a protein transition. And you see Wageningen Eet Duurzaam. So here I mentioned the governments. They are extremely important here because now in local communities, in regionals and national and even EU, Europe, they are focusing on the protein transition. So we thought, well, we are making your aims, we make it concrete. So if you need some examples, we can boost it. We are this protein transition. So in December we were example, and then in the middle you see the chefs, but also the Knowledge Institute from Wageningen University. They are working on the protein transition. Friends of mine, she's a food scientist working for eating. Promoting more vegetables for small children, and she says, well, I can make a blog and I can share my knowledge, and then it's on your platform, and I can put it on my platform as well. So we think connecting with the knowledge partners is always key, from scientists, but also from these high school students or everybody, because they give you a new view of what is going on. On the right side, you see this was a meeting last week with the Biodiversiteitsmonitor. That's a biodiversity. We're in the Netherlands looking, well, how can we do contribute to the benefits of this protein on biodiversity, and how can we have these farmers get money for it, for example, by growing these lupins. But I want to know how do they think, how do they work? So, but Rabobank was inviting me to this platform, so I'm learning from this. And also you have two other pictures here. You see the Dutch Food Week. That's a small logo, but it's a national week where they are promoting the Dutch food. And that's a platform. And I'm sure in every country you'll have some national weeks of festivities, and you can contribute and say, well, during that week, or during you have World Pulses Day, you can add some content. You can organize your thing. So, for example, the restaurant week was during this National Food Week. And then they gave us a platform. And you see the other picture, it's about a foundation. They have a foundation for educate young kids from the age of 10 and 11. And they want to educate them for what about healthy organic food, and what does it do for our planet, for animals. And they ask us, well, or no, I asked them, well, maybe it's a good idea to collaborate. And then they thought, well, we don't know lupin, but it looks really nice. And during this lockdown, we need to have more home, how do you say, onderwijs, education during the online. So they make a video of making your own lupin burger. And they challenge them and ask them, well, do you have nice recipes as well? So we team up with many people, and then you have to focus, okay, who is contributing to the same goal, to your value proposition as you do?
Great. A lot of examples of nice parties you work with, and I think it's good to make this division between like scientific partners, but also more of the kind of not necessarily activists, but also through social media, and to find out like, okay, who can we team up with? And that's a great example of how to kind of have different types of partners that can help you with different type of activities that you want to achieve. Of course, we also have the bottom line of the business model canvas. And as I mentioned in the beginning, it's not something you start with because it's something that will follow from implementing your activities, but also with actually bringing that offer to the market. But it is something that is important. So it's about labeling in the very first stages, like can you label what kind of cost strategy of cost post will you have? Thinking about if you have a technology-driven solution, you probably need to do quite a lot of research. That will cost you money because you need to have access to a laboratory, for instance, or to have maybe interns working or people that you need to pay for their expertise. So it's not about necessarily putting numbers to it in this stage for you guys, but more about thinking, okay, what type of different cost headings would I have? Like, if these are the activities and the resources I need, what would that mean for costing? So it's just sort of an exercise to think about that. The same holds for your revenue part of the model, which is on the right bottom. It's really about how to kind of generate revenue for what are people willing to pay in the end for the value that you offer. So what's your revenue model? And also in the follow-up workshop, we will dive more into the mechanisms of this, but maybe you can already think about, okay, we have a proposition that is a business to business. We sell a technology to another business, or maybe even an ingredient or a part of a technology, and that's our value proposition, and we know who the customer is. Okay, maybe we have a licensing agreement or a subscription or a leasing kind of structure. So you can already think about, okay, how can we make sure that people actually pay for the value that we offer, right? And again, you do not necessarily need to know the exact amounts, but it more has to do with, okay, being aware of the different things that are out there. And of course, you kind of get how we go about this presentation. I've also asked Marieke to think about, okay, how does Lovely Lupine balance cost and revenues, and to give you a little bit of a feeling on how that could work in practice. So I'd like to ask Marieke again to come into the screen and to give us maybe a short overview of how that works for Lovely Lupine, because you're also in a very early stage. So I think it's still something that you guys are also working on. Yeah. But I'm curious to hear how you think about this.
Yeah, because now it's all startup. And of course, we want to have this money revenue streams from selling the beans, from the organic beans, and that is gonna be one part of it, because this is the most easiest part. But we think there should be other examples as well for getting these revenues, and maybe it is, and we are still looking for it, because we think, well, we have to develop new products, so we can have this. When you have this Lupine products, then you add more value and you can gain a higher price. And it's always our main thought is, well, we need a fair price for everybody in the food chain, and especially a fair price for our farmers, because most of the times now in the Netherlands, but also all over the world, the farmers are at the end of the line, and we do not want that. So we think, well, we give the farmers a fair price, and after a year, when we thought, well, it is possible in our business to raise get a higher price for lupins, they can get a fair share of this price. But the revenues also can come from the events we are organizing. For example, the government of Wageningen asked us to organize this restaurant week, and I said, yes, we can do it, but I want some consultancy money from it. So they were participating in, they gave us some money. And I think in the first years, we are a little bit, we need some money from government because it's not profitable to sell this, to building this community and to invest in all this knowledge. Yeah, we can do it by ourselves, but we need some extra money, for example, to make this website, to pay our hours. But so this is, we're looking for more ways, not only in products, but I also think in services to get money from this lupin, and not only from the beans, but maybe also for when you grow lupins, it's good for biodiversity. So now we are connecting. Also, this is because connecting all the stakeholders and find out who is really interesting in lupin and why. So, and then we can find out, well, okay, what's the best way of doing business? So, but this is for us still a little bit a difficult part.
Yeah, I can imagine, and that holds for all kind of startup propositions. I would say that it's hard to kind of pinpoint all these things in the beginning, and that will gradually grow. And when you know a little bit more about your actual activities and your actual resources, but also maybe in deciding, okay, this is the first really target group we are going to go full steam ahead for. Probably these structures also become more clear. Thanks for sharing those insights, at least very in depth for the traditional, I would say, business model canvas. So we went through all these 9 building blocks with a little bit of explanation, but a lot of kind of actual practical insights in how that actually looks like in a startup that is starting, I would say. So that's hopefully helpful for you guys to pinpoint, okay, it's not just this map on paper that we fill out, but it can already relate to like the images, but also the activities that Lovely Lupin has put in place, like the cooking competitions, like the contact with partners, like all kinds of small steps that Marieke and her team are taking to build this business model campus. Right, so it's not done yet. It's something that is in progress, and they've mapped a few of these elements, but by learning and by doing and by putting things into practice, they learn and they kind of feed that back into their business model canvas, and they map kind of new things. At least that's what I feel like you are doing, and you're continuously like changing these things, and that's also at the core of these models. So as promised, I will also tell you a little bit about the 2 other layers, and I know it's already been quite some time that we have tried to capture your attention. So I think it's also good to not take too long of your time, but go through the steps so you can actually implement them in your project. So when we talk about the environmental model, I already said that this is based on the life cycle approach of life cycle assessment, basically. So if you look at the model, it looks the same as the business model canvas. It has also 9 building blocks blocks, and they relate to the building blocks of the traditional business model canvas. But what I want you to put your time and effort towards is to think about these environmental impacts. So what are we doing that is still causing an effect on the environment? So thinking about your carbon footprint, there are also hints in there like health impact. Are we using non-renewable resources? What is our water consumption, for instance, in producing, in the case of lupine? What do we need for this that has an impact on the environment? Also for you to be aware of the fact that you still have probably a negative impact somehow on the environment, and that you need to be aware of this. It's not something that you always have to overshare, but if you're aware of it, you can also try and look for better ways in terms of materials. So can you be smarter about using renewables, for instance? Can you be smart about your energy use in terms of producing the offer? Can you think about greener ways of doing that? The same holds, for instance, if you look at the use phase. Can you think about how does your customer use your product, and if they need to put energy into it to make it edible, for instance, what does that then mean for your product? So you have the impacts on the one side and you have the benefits on the other side. So pinpoint those things that are positive, that you have changed and that has a positive impact on the environment. And that sometimes relates to material reduction. Maybe there is behavioral change involved. And it also relates to energy saving. So are you more efficient maybe in your way of producing? In the case of lovely lupine, you can already think about, okay, Marieke already said so, like it's a plant, it uses less water to make, or maybe less CO2 to produce, right? So there are a lot of things that you can think about in pinpointing. And for your first step into this process of the challenge, of the Rethink Protein Challenge, it's good to think about these things critically. So what are still the impacts that you make, and what are the benefits that you can have? And that helps you in also bringing this new innovative idea much further. So if you're very clear about the benefits, that helps you in this positioning of this new idea that you have, and that it's better than maybe another alternative that is out there. So, Marieke, can you briefly explain how Lovely Lupine is putting emphasis on sustainability in your storyline? And you've mentioned it a couple of times, but maybe to the core, like what it is that you guys do.
Okay, yeah, we think it's extremely important to tell about this environmental impact. That's why the consumers and our target group is interested in. So I asked also the students group, they make this infographic and they tell about the environmental aspects, and it's about 100% Dutch grown. It's all organic. And it's supporting the biodiversity. So these are the most important environmental impact we are making. And we have also this discussion on it because there are small farmers or farmers from other countries. They are not growing organic lupines. And we said, well, we want to cooperate with you, but only when you're certified eco, SCAL label, and then we can bring it to the market. And sometimes they say, well, we do it, but not we are planning to do so. So this is a discussion about us from us as well. But we think to have this story to our consumers and our network, it is extremely important to tell about what are the how we're making impact, and so practice what you preach is the main thing.
Exactly. And then do you also encounter then difficulties in actually measuring this, or is it relatively clear for you?
No, it is of course difficult in measuring, but it's all started by finding, okay, which things are relevant. And then we didn't know, but suddenly somebody said, well, because of the soy, they make a lot of GMO. This is the difficulties with the GMO, and lupin is GMO free, so it's a clean label. And we said, okay, then we have to say that, and we don't want to push other products and say, well, we are better, or we are do not want, if you want to eat meat, be my guest, but we want to emphasize our strengths. So this is our way how we want to promote.
Yeah. Clear, thanks. So in addition to the environmental layer, you also have the societal layer. And here again, I would really like to focus the attention on the social impact. So the negative effects that it might have. It could be that you have a product that might, also in the case of lupine, do we actually know it has health benefits? Maybe it also has some negative aspects to it. How does that relate to consumption patterns? Are there still things that are maybe you don't enhance in terms of social inclusivity or something like that? But also on the other hand, the social benefits. So can you pinpoint for your idea whether there might be positive aspects to the quality of life, maybe to inclusiveness and to well-being? And these are just hints in this model that you can think of, but there are, of course, are much more related to these impacts and these benefits. And of course, I also asked Marieke to think about, okay, how does that look like for a lovely lupin? So maybe you can explain for a last time, I would say, one of the building blocks related to the social impacts.
Yes. One of the main benefits is about it's rich of proteins, and it has so many benefits for a healthy plant-based diet. That so it's no fat, gluten-free, or so it rich of amino acids. So it is a good source when you don't want to eat meat to have a diet with lupins. So it's also more plant-based. And it's when you organize it in a local way, just like in your country, it is also connecting the community, and it's you're a platform to educate, and farmers, consumers, they're connected. And I think, and by organizing this events in the field, eating together, we really like to connect and educate about food. Why is organic so important? What are the benefits of eating organic? What is biodiversity? A lot of people don't know. More and more people are aware of it is important, climate change and biodiversity, but many people don't know. It's a difficult word. Why? What is it? And but by connecting the farmers, by the chefs and everybody in the food chain, we also invited the chefs in the field excursion. And many chefs, they didn't have been on a field. And it's not possible to go for chefs every day on a daily basis to see this field, but just do it once a year. And then you connect many people, and it's not, everybody gets energy about it. So sometimes you don't know where you're sowing, or how do you say, sowing, and you don't know what you harvest. But by connecting people around this mission, there are coming new ways and new opportunities, and we don't know what's happening. And this is why I'm also immediately say yes when they invited me to contribute to this Rethink Protein Challenge, because I thought, well, there are so many students, eager students from all over the world, and working on this protein transition as well, even not with lupins, but and it's fun to learn from each other. So I hope I have a story for you, but I hope I can learn from you as well. So this makes my work worthwhile. And that's important for me as well.
Yeah, definitely. So maybe as a kind of a final remark, like what do you advise these students working on this protein transition in these kinds of unsure, complex environments? Because it's not really easy to start something. Like if you would have one piece of advice for them, what would it be?
Just do it.
Yeah.
It's like last year we won this challenge, Rabobank, and we got this invitation for all these events. And then because of Corona, it all was locked down. And then I was, well, okay. But I started this cooking challenge just in my hometown. And there were 25 people, and they were more than happy to cook with these lupines. And then by doing, then Rabobank asked me, well, Rens Kroes, and she is an influencer on Instagram with more than 300,000 followers. And she wanted to work with this challenge as well. So she made a recipe for lupin, and she made this falafel, and she shared this with her for almost 400,000 followers. So this is one, well, it's just happening when you are working.
Yeah, because you meet new people, you have new resources, you have a wider network, and new opportunities arise, I think. And that's what you cannot control for, but by taking all these steps and doing what you can do today to get to a next step tomorrow or next week, that's how you can tackle this in an entrepreneurial way. And I'm super grateful that you could show this with all these really nice examples and with the things that you've already done in half year's time, right? It's really short, but you've managed to already get a lot of things off the ground. And that's what I like about this story, what I hope that the people attending also pick out from it. Like the challenge, if you go all the way, it's up until June, I think. And that's quite a lot of time, and a lot can happen in that time. So embrace these new things that come along, and you can only get there by actually really doing things. And I think that also relates to my kind of final takeaways that I have for this session. It provides you with important building blocks, this triple layer business model canvas, and especially the blue layer. And it is really aimed at designing a user-driven, innovative product, service, or technology. And this user-driven, this is something that you should really take out of today, like learning from what your end user or your customer or the business that you want to work with wants to get out of it, and really design your offer accordingly. And that's not it's much easier said than done. But if you really embrace this user-driven design, you'll really get further in the game. This business model canvas, if you fill it out for the first time, and I hope you guys start doing that, it's full of assumptions. You don't necessarily know if that's the right channel or if you can actually make that technology. It's full of guesses. And that's perfectly fine in this stage. And that's also what Marieke has pinpointed. Like, we didn't know really where it was going, but by actually doing and by trying things out, talking to experts, talking to knowledge institutes, talking to maybe researchers and teachers that you have in certain courses, you learn a lot about the validity and the feasibility of your idea, right? So really try to embrace that and ask as many questions as you can. It's not a one-time exercise. It's not filling it out and then it's like, yeah, we have our business model canvas. Now we have a working business in the end. It changes and it should change over time. So hopefully while working on it, you have a whole different perspective on your business model in the end of the challenge than you have right now. And it takes practice. It needs working with it. And one of the places where you can find a lot of information on this tool is on strategizer.com. So check it out. And there's also the book and the whole kind of working mechanism behind the business model canvas. So just to show you visually, this is kind of the process that you go through. You think about what your idea should look like and you start building or experimenting. Marieke has done that with cooking workshops, with going out into the field, talking to people, and you measure things. You think about, okay, what is it that we hear back? and you learn from it. And from there, you start iterating on your idea, on the processes that you go through, and you start over again. And these are these short feedback loops that we've been talking about and that you should embrace in this entrepreneurial way of working. Well, it's homework between brackets. This is basically a delineation of what also is in your deliverable report. So it's about defining the problem. It's about defining your project vision, and you can use the golden circle for that. That is really helpful. But also thinking about what's the market needs that relates to the problem as well. And then what's the solution? And you can help. You can make use of the triple layered business model canvas or of the business model canvas to describe that solution. So see it as a tool that helps you describe this and start working on a validation plan. If you go through all these steps, you're also working on the deliverables of the Rethink Protein Challenge. And so making use of these tools helps you in getting these things done for the end of it all. Yeah, Marieke, you already mentioned that you're also curious about them. So I think you are more than open to talk with some of the groups if they want.
Yeah. So feel free. I'm happy to answer you. And
exactly.
Thank you for this invitation. And have a great Rethink Protein Challenge.
Yeah, indeed. I also see the contact details already in the chat, so that's great. Same holds for me. You will see me in the future again, but also feel free to reach out if needed. And I think that wraps up at least what I wanted to say and what I wanted to introduce, and I think also what Marieke wanted to say. So Marta, if you have any final remarks, we have 1 minute left, I see. So couldn't have better timed it.
Okay, yes. Great. Thank you very much, Lisa and Marieke. I think it was a very interesting presentation, and also I enjoyed very much to hearing the case that you presented. It was a very good illustration of the business model canvas. I hope that everybody who attended the workshop also enjoyed it. We're going to send a survey with the link to the video that people can watch back on our YouTube channel. So if you want, you can watch back the recording of this event. We have also put in the chat the link to the slides, so you can download them still before the event ends. And for now, I would like to thank you very much. There will be a follow-up training with Lisa once you get to the second round of the challenge. And if you want to get in contact with Marieke, please do so. And good luck with your first milestone report, because that's what is coming next. So with that, I would like to close the session for today and wish you a very nice afternoon, morning, day, in whatever time zone you are. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, thanks.
Bye-bye.